But there's one little-known corner, one of the last maritime graveyards in the country, where you can still see a time capsule of New York Harbor's golden era before it falls into the sea.
How you doing, Moses?
I'm meeting up with urban explorer and author Moses Gates, who knows where to find it.
We're basically going as far south as you can get and still be in New York City.
Okay. So this is officially a salvage yard, a junkyard for boats.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
Same as you go to the junkyard to get an old auto, you would go here to get an old boat. It wouldn't run.
Are there a lot of these all over the waterways?
No, there's actually not very many. This is one of only a few in the United States.
Really?
To get there, we're heading southeast through a tunnel and over a bridge to an unknown corner of a not-so-distant island, Staten Island, often knocked as a dumping ground for the stuff New York wants to sweep under the rug, whether it's mobsters like John Gotti or the largest landfill in the world. It's only 20 miles or so, but for a lot of New Yorkers, it's the other side of the world.
How much do we owe you? $52.
I don't know what's worse, the cab fare or the weather.
Pouring rain out here. So this is it out here?
Yep, this is the boat graveyard.
The few people who even know about this place are discouraged from coming here. It's an off-limits, privately owned tangle of boats, crowded with tons of tugs that used to crowd the harbor. They've been gutted for their most valuable parts, and the hulks left are too expensive to dismantle. So today, they mostly just rot. Moses tells me you can only see a small portion of them from the shore, so he's arranged for canoes.
All right, to the graveyard we go. Aye, right into a puddle. Nice.
We just might wind up bailing them out.
You know, if you're gonna go paddling in the rain, it might as well be a driving rain.
Oh, yeah. If you look, that's New Jersey right there. This isn't a very wide river, and this is a lot in New York Harbor. So you gotta have these guys that are able to kind of guide the larger ships that are more seagoing ships.
How many ships are out here?
Oh, there's at least a few dozen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not everything is tugboats. You can see there's barges, there's old ferries.
That is a cool piece of wreckage. Old ferry boat, right?
Yep. So I'm guessing you've ridden on a ferry before, eh?
Yeah.
You ever ridden through a ferry?
No.
Moses tells me that ferries like this were New York's lifeline when the city was really taking off.
You had the city increasing by, at one point in time, 1 million people every 10 years, almost 100,000 people a year.
Right.
You have people in Brooklyn, you have people in Queens, you have people in New Jersey, but there's a problem. All the jobs are in Manhattan, all the industry is in Manhattan. Now you've got to get people to and from Manhattan also. So you do it with boats like these. You have ferries leaving every 5 minutes at one point. So you can imagine what happens. You have these big boats going up and down the river, and then you have these tiny little ferries going across. And the result is absolute chaos.
Before the Brooklyn Bridge or the subways, this city couldn't function without the tugboats.
Look at that. That's really kind of mysterious, isn't it? You can pretty much look right in these doors.
Whether they were hauling trash or conducting rescues, mid-20th century tugs were icons of dependability and enterprise. Unsung heroes that didn't get the glory, but got the job done.
You know, they do the work of a lot more ship than they are. Giant engines, able to push huge tankers and so forth. Look at that thing.
So you have this thing hauling essentially something 20 to 30 times bigger than itself. It's like one of those little ants that carry like the huge crumbs on its back.
I mean, really could not have made New York without the tugboat.
Oh, not a chance.
The most famous skyline in the world wouldn't exist without the turn-of-the-century tugs that hauled mountains of sand and stone down the Hudson to literally build the city. And as the city grew, their earning potential wasn't lost on one famous Staten Island native, Cornelius Vanderbilt. Before he was the king of the railroad, Vanderbilt was a rising star in New York Harbor, kickstarting one of the greatest fortunes in American history by investing in a small fleet of tugs.
First, probably 300 years in New York City's existence, it was completely a maritime city. It's the whole reason why we sprung up from, you know, a little city of 10, 20,000 in the colonial age to a city of 8 million plus right now. So this is really like the classic tugboat shape where you have that rounded nose.
Unbelievable. Gigantic thing. Look at this. So this ship is sitting at high tide right now. How interesting and cool that we could just sort of float right onto this.
I know. And you can kind of see the mechanism where the tugboats hook up to the larger barges right in here.
Huge piece of machinery inside this thing.
Oh, this is the winch. This is what makes tugboats the tug.
Exactly. If you're going to tug something, you need something like that.
Today, tugs still have the same features that made them the hardest working boats in the harbor. A tall pilot house that gives captains a 360-degree view, a rounded muscular bow for pushing other vessels, and a monster engine to drive the boat and power the winch. Originally steam, but now diesel, up to a whopping 27,000 horsepower.
Man, you're looking at the very early version of what made New York Harbor work, and in that regard, what made New York happen. These guys were pushing these boats around back in the 10s, 20s, 30s, and building this commercial center that could service the world. And now they sit here, you know, rotting away, and New York doesn't even know it.
In the 60s and 70s, big rigs and planes started taking over. 90% of longshore jobs disappeared. And today, New York's tugboat fleet is less than half the size it was in its heyday. But even though New York's biggest port might be JFK, none of it would be here without the little guys with the big chops.